The 1965 Washington quarter is a notable coin in American numismatic history, primarily due to its transition from a silver composition to a clad composition, which marked a significant change in U.S. coinage. Here's a detailed overview of its history, design, and value. Historical context: the silver crisis. Before 1965, U.S. quarters were composed of 90% silver and 10% copper. However, by the early 1960s, the price of silver was rising, causing the intrinsic value of silver coins to approach or even exceed their face value. This led to widespread hoarding and melting down of silver coins, which created a shortage of coinage for everyday transactions. The Coinage Act of 1965 was a pivotal piece of legislation in U.S. monetary history, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on July 23, 1965. This act authorized the elimination of silver from the dime and quarter and reduced the silver content of the half dollar. This change was driven by several factors. Even uncirculated pieces are affordable, and you should set aside a modest $5 to $25 for those ranked MS60 to MS62. Better graded quarters are slightly more expensive, with a price range from $20 to $50, while those in MS67 grade are estimated at $580 to $1,036. 1965 quarter price chart: higher a coin's grade, the higher its value is. The coin with the highest grade, MS70, has no post-production imperfections at all. These days, 1965 quarters in circulated conditions are only worth up to 85 cents. However, a mint 1965 quarter can be worth as much as $5,000 to $150. The Coinage Act of 1965. The Coinage Act of 1965. In response to this crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which authorized the minting of quarters and dimes with a new composition to alleviate the problem. The act effectively ended the use of silver in these denominations, replacing it with a clad composition of copper and nickel. Specifically, the new quarters were made of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a core of pure copper. Design and composition: obverse design. The obverse front of the 1965 Washington quarter features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States. This design, created by John Flanagan, was first used in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. The inscription Liberty appears above Washington's head, and the motto In God We Trust is inscribed to the left. The date 1965 is located below the portrait. Reverse design: the reverse back of the quarter features an eagle with outstretched wings, perched on a bundle of arrows with two olive branches beneath it. This design, also by Flanagan, has remained largely unchanged since its introduction. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum are above the eagle, while quarter dollar is below. Composition change: the 1965 Washington quarter is notable for being the first year of the clad coinage era. Its composition consists of a copper-nickel clad, which is significantly different from the 90% silver composition used in quarters minted from 1932 to 1964. This change was necessary to ensure that the coins could continue to circulate widely without being hoarded for their metal value. Production and mint marks. Mint locations. In 1965, quarters were produced at the Philadelphia Mint. One distinctive aspect of the 1965 quarters is the absence of mint marks, which were omitted from all quarters produced between 1965 and 1967 to discourage hoarding and ensure a smooth transition to the new clad coinage, mintage. The total mintage of 1965 quarters was substantial, reflecting the need to replace the silver quarters being hoarded and to provide sufficient coinage for everyday use. Over 1.8 billion quarters were produced in 1965, making it a common year for Washington quarters. Collectability and value. Circulated coins. In circulated condition, 1965 Washington quarters are generally not particularly valuable due to their high mintage and the fact that they contain no silver. Most circulated examples are worth their face value of 25 cents. However, their historical significance and the transition from silver to clad composition make them interesting to collectors. Even uncirculated pieces are affordable, and you should set aside a modest $5 to $25 for those ranked MS60 to MS62. Better graded quarters are slightly more expensive, with a price range from $20 to $50, while those in MS67 grade are estimated at $580 to $1,036. 1965 quarter price chart: higher a coin's grade, the higher its value is. The coin with the highest grade, MS70, has no post-production imperfections at all. These days, 1965 quarters in circulated conditions are only worth up to 85 cents. However, a mint 1965 quarter can be worth as much as $5,000 to $150. The Coinage Act of 1965. Errors and varieties. As with many coins, certain errors and varieties can enhance the value of a 1965 quarter. Some known errors include off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during striking. Double die obverse, reverse, where the design elements appear double due to a misalignment in the die. These error coins can be significantly more valuable than regular issues, with prices varying widely based on the severity and uniqueness of the error. Investment and market trends. Long-term trends. The value of 1965 quarters in circulated condition is unlikely to increase significantly due to their high mintage and lack of silver content. However, high-grade uncirculated examples and error coins can appreciate over time, especially as more collectors enter the market and seek out these specific coins. Modern collecting interest in modern clad coins, including the 1965 quarter, has been growing as more collectors turn their attention to coins from the latter half of the 20th century. While these coins are not as valuable as their silver predecessors, they represent an important period in U.S. numismatic history and offer a more affordable entry point for new collectors. Significance in U.S. coinage. The 1965 Washington quarter marks a pivotal moment in U.S. coinage history. The transition from silver to clad coinage was a response to economic pressures and had lasting impacts on how coins were produced and circulated. This change reflected broader economic trends and the evolving needs of the country's monetary system. Impact on coinage policies. The decision to eliminate silver from most U.S. coins was driven by practicality and necessity. It allowed the U.S. Mint to produce coins that would circulate without being removed from the economy due to their metal content. This policy shift also paved the way for future changes in coinage, including the introduction of new designs and compositions. Legacy. The legacy of the 1965 Washington quarter extends beyond its numismatic value. It serves as a historical artifact that encapsulates a specific period in American economic history. Collectors and historians alike value these coins for what they represent, a time of change and adaptation in the face of economic challenges. Collecting tips. For those interested in collecting 1965 Washington quarters, here are some tips. Condition matters. Look for coins in the best condition possible. Uncirculated examples with minimal wear and strong luster are more desirable. Professional grading. Consider having valuable coins professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC. This can provide a reliable assessment of the coin's condition and enhance its value. Error coins. Keep an eye out for error coins, which can be significantly more valuable than regular issues. Learn to identify common errors and varieties. Complete sets. Some collectors aim to complete sets of Washington quarters, including both silver and clad issues. This can be a rewarding challenge that adds context and depth to a collection. Conclusion. The 1965 Washington quarter holds a unique place in American numismatic history. As the first year of clad coinage, it represents a significant shift in U.S. monetary policy and coin production. While most 1965 quarters are not particularly valuable in circulated condition, their historical significance and the transition they represent make them interesting to collectors. High-grade examples and error coins can be valuable, and the growing interest in modern coins suggests that their importance may continue to rise. For collectors, the 1965 quarter offers an accessible and historically rich addition to their collections. The Coinage Act of 1965. In response to this crisis, Congress passed the Coinage Act of 1965, which authorized the minting of quarters and dimes with a new composition to alleviate the problem.